Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sparks Planning Commission meeting of May 2nd, 2019. Appreciate everyone being here this evening. We'll call this meeting to order. The next item on the agenda is roll call. And present.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Blanco?
Here.
Commissioner Brock? Absent. Commissioner Fewens? Absent. Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Vanderwell?
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick? Here. Assistant Community Services Director Amanda?
Here.
Thank you very much for that. Send our regards to Commissioner Fewens, who's in Europe. Maybe if he's watching on Sparks Centennial TV right now online. And we wish the best for Commissioner Brock. She's got a big fundraiser for her organization, so we miss those folks. We do have a quorum, so we'll move on to our next item. That's public comment. This is our first general public comment period for our meeting. If anyone in the audience would like to talk or provide a public comment on any item that's on the agenda or not on the agenda, this is an opportunity to do so. You'll have up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to provide a general public comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to item number 4. That's approval of the agenda. I didn't get any additions or corrections from staff on the agenda tonight, but would the commission care to take action on the agenda? Commissioner?
Mr. Chair.
Based on that, there's
Commissioner
no
Peterson.
alterations or corrections. I move the agenda be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Peterson to approve the agenda as submitted, a second by Commissioner Vanderwell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The agenda is approved as submitted. The next item on the agenda is our approval of the meeting minutes. The first up is the approval of the meeting minutes from our April 2nd Planning Commission study session. Were there any changes or corrections to those meeting minutes by the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vanderwell.
I move to approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission study session.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwell, a second by Commissioner Blanco. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of the study session are approved. Next up is the approval of the meeting minutes from our April 4th Planning Commission meeting. I believe they were 139 pages long, which I think is some kind of record around here. So thank you very much to our staff that assembled those. Were there any changes or corrections to those minutes from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vanderwell.
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwell to approve as submitted. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Peterson, or second by Commissioner Peterson. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Those meeting minutes are approved. That brings us on to item number 6 on our agenda. This is informational items.
Chairman Carey, on behalf of staff, there are no informational items.
Okay, no informational items from the staff. I believe this will be the only meeting of the Planning Commission this month, just for general information to the public. Okay, that brings us into the meat of our agenda, public hearing items. First up is PCN 19-0010. This is a conditional use permit for mini warehouse on Sullivan Lane. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commissioners, Jonathan Cummins, planner. PCN 19-0010 is a request for a conditional use permit to allow a mini warehouse recreational vehicle storage facility on 1.75 acres at 2101 Sullivan Lane, outlined in cyan on the image. The property is located in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. In 2018, the property owner approached the city with a rough outline of the proposal that's before you tonight. The proposed use and associated intensification required that the property be annexed into the city limits. It was previously in a county island, which still exists to the south of it, outlined in the checkered line. In addition to the annexation, the use required rezoning to commercial, to general commercial. And in that zoning, this proposed use requires a conditional use permit. So the proposed use as an RV storage facility is generally associated with mini warehouse use. And there's various examples of this around the city of Sparks and many more around the greater Reno-Sparks area. The proposed use will accommodate 58 recreational vehicles, the majority of them covered by carports, only a few that won't be. There's 3 existing structures that will remain on the property. 2 of them residences, one of them a garage, and you can see them on the bottom part of the image here. They'll remain. There's also 1 existing structure on the site that will be cleared away in order to establish the site for the business. There's a proposed shop on the side of the business, just north of the residences that I was pointing out right here. And in that shop, staff is requiring in the conditions of approval that there be dedicated office space in that building for the owner-operator to conduct the business out of. So staff believes that the Planning Commission can make the required 5 findings. Finding C1 requires that the proposal be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The land use designation for the site is commercial, mini warehouse, or specifically recreational vehicle storage facility, is permitted in that land use designation, subject to the approval of the conditional use permit. The comprehensive plan goals relevant to this proposal include Goal MG1 to support economic vitality with a non-residential land use base, Goal MG2 to foster diversity in the land use mix, and Policy CF1 that the city is able to provide adequate services at the site. The proposal of an RV storage facility on this site, which is currently a vacant dirt lot for the most part, staff believes to be an upgrade and to improve the overall site as well as the neighborhood, and in that regard believes that it allows the applicant to contribute to those above mentioned goals. Finding C2 requires compatibility with existing and permitted properties and uses. To the north, south, and west of the site are single-family homes. To the east across Sullivan Lane is a school. The proposed fencing, walls, and carports, staff believes will enable the applicant to significantly reduce the view of the RVs on the site from public view, mainly from Sullivan Lane, where there's a good amount of traffic throughout the day. And in doing that, we believe that mitigating the site, the visibility of the RVs will essentially bring more compatibility of the site to the surrounding uses. Finding C3 requires we mitigate the impairment of natural resources. This is currently a vacant dirt lot, so there will not be any impairment of natural resources. Finding C4 requires that staff address any other identified impacts. The city's transportation manager has reviewed the proposal and agrees that the traffic generated on the site will be minimal and that no further traffic analysis will be required. Conditions 4 through 6 in the staff report address specifically the visibility of the RVs from the site. Staff has received a proposal from the applicant which will address visibility of the RVs on the site. And so with the combination of landscaping, 6-foot concrete walls around the site, as well as the angle of the carports on the site, that visibility will be minimal. Proposed condition 7 prohibits repair on the site. The owner, operator of the business will be limited to wiping windows, inflating tires, adding wiper fluid to RVs. The applicant has made it clear to us that his intention is to have the vehicles ready for customers to pick them up so that there's minimal time spent on site when a customer comes to take their RV off the site for use. Condition 9 pertains specifically to the dwelling units on the site, and staff is proposing in that condition that those residences remain residences and that the business be conducted only out of the shop facility, which will have dedicated office space. Finding C5 requires public noticing, which was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on April 18th, and 76 property owners were notified as well of the case. And with that, staff is recommending approval. I'll be glad to take your questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is the applicant's representative here? They wish to speak at this time? Do you guys wish to speak at this time or provide any comments for the record?
Just on behalf of the applicant, Mark.
Come on up to the podium. And just state your name and address for the record, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Nathan Robinson, PE. I'm a resident of 12810 Fellowship Way, South Reno. Our business is in Sparks above the Great Basin Brewery. And Luke Doyle's one of my engineering assistants. He's done most of the hard work here. And we are really just available at your disposal if you had any questions for us.
Okay,
But I agree with staff's findings and grateful for the work they put into it.
appreciate that. Did the commission have any questions for the applicant's representative? Okay, none at this time. Thank you, Nathan. This is a public hearing item. So at this time, I will open up the public hearing for PCN 190010. Is there anyone in the audience that wish to make a public comment on the proposed conditional use permit? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing on this item. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or any additional questions. Are there any questions on this? Commissioner
I have one
Peterson.
of Staff, did you tell me you've already approved an office for that warehouse?
This is Jonathan Cummins for the record. We've requested that the applicant propose that there be office space in that shop. And they have complied with that and given us their confirmation that there will be a shop space in that warehouse.
If this item gets approved, it's based on that approval also, be approved also?
They've proposed the office use in that site, yes. And so
Okay.
when building permits come through, those things will have to be approved by the administrator when that time comes. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. And if I could add to that, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I didn't clarify something that did come up at study session. To the west, adjacent to the residential, and to the south, adjacent to the residential, are existing 6-foot fences. I indicated that we were going to be adding more to there, but there's not any additional fencing other than on the streets to the east and north of the property. That's where the concrete walls will go.
So no wall between they'll just remain? a
Existing
6-foot
fencing, yes,
fence,
6-foot fences, yes.
Appreciate that clarification. Is there any other questions from the commission?
Then I'd like to make a motion.
Sorry, Commissioner Peterson, I had a couple questions
Oh, okay.
for staff on this one. I had a question about condition number 6. This requires that the carports be compatible with the other structures on the site. I was curious, in staff's opinion, how a metal carport structure could be compatible with the houses that I think were built in the 50s.
To clarify that, Mr. Chairman, I believe that we're looking for compatibility with the structure that's going to be built. The existing homes, obviously, we agree, are not going to be compatible with new carports that are going to be installed on the site for the use of the business.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question concerning, so we're looking tonight at the proposed use for mini warehouse or mini storage use. And if this is approved, potentially down the line, a enclosed mini storage facility could potentially be built on this site under this conditional use permit, or I was curious about that.
Sure. So, I mean, it's my impression that this entitlement is specific to the use of the outdoor recreational vehicle storage. The closest category that we have in our use table in the zoning code is mini warehouse. Mini warehouse explains that there's space for belongings that would be associated with that business use. So we're specific in this staff report, as well as overall in the conditions, that we're not talking about establishing a personal storage facility with sheds and roll-up doors and things like that.
So that sort of use would require an additional special use or conditional use permit down the road? Armando?
Armando Ornelas, Chairman Carey and members of the Planning Commission. I think what I would probably point to in this instance, in regard to your question, is condition 1, which says that basically this approval is based on the submittal and the conditions that are associated with the proposed approval of the project. Your staff would probably assert that if this was in fact going to be, if the existing or the proposed carports were going to be replaced with mini warehouse structures, that would constitute a substantive change, and we would require either amendment or a new special conditional use permit.
Okay. Great, I wanted to get that on the record. Thank you for the clarification, staff. Are there any other questions on this one? I think Commissioner Peterson was
Yes,
itching to get something on this one.
I'd like to make the motion if I may.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the conditional use permit CU 19-005 associated with PCN 19-0010. Adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 10 conditions of approval as listed in the staff's report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Commissioner Vanderwell. Is there any discussions or questions on the motion? Before we vote, I had a couple comments I'd like to make for the record. Last year I did not support the land use change to C because I felt that the site surrounded by 3 sides by a single family and across the street from 2 schools, it was an appropriate C land use area. I do have some concerns with allowing commercial commercial uses on this site being with those adjacent structures. I do appreciate the clarification from staff on the conditional use permit. If this was to be upgraded to, enclosed, that would go through a public process. So I do feel more comfortable about that. Commercial uses next to adjacent to single family is always kind of tough in my opinion, but I think RV storage in character of what's existing on that property now is pretty compatible, and this could be an upgrade. I do appreciate that there's a wall, some additional landscaping that will help screen this use. So I will be supporting the motion, but I wanted to put those comments on the record. Were there any other comments before we vote? Commissioner Blako.
I would like to make one more comment too. I think that it'd be helpful in the future if we elaborated a tad more on specifically on condition 7. Just saying that it's a minor repair. Minor can be kind of subjective, and I would like to know if they'd be using like pneumatic tools or anything like that so close to a family homes. So, but I do support this. I just wanted to make that a little more clear about my concern.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Blake. I think we have.
This is Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. I just wanted to clarify, our code does define what a minor auto repair is.
Okay.
So we were relying on that definition in our code.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Commissioner Blake. Okay, any other comments before we vote? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it. The motion is approved. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, next on our agenda is PCN 19-0011. This is a conditional use permit to allow expansion of an existing child care facility on 19th Street. Danny, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Carey and members of the Planning Commission, which is the mic, this one. I'm Danny Ray, planner. I'm here to present PCN 19-0011, consideration of a possible action on a request for a conditional use permit to allow expansion of an existing child care facility on a site 6,250 square feet in size, located at 448 19th Street, Sparks, Nevada, in the MUD, Mixed Use District, Mixed Residential Zoning District. I'm sorry. The subject site is located at the southeast corner of 19th Street and E Street, outlined in cyan. The adjacent site that currently houses Itsy Bitsy Learning Center is to the south of it, adjacent to Prater Way, and it's outlined in red.
It's a great name.
Isn't it? For some background information, on January 16th, 2014, the Planning Commission approved PCN 1305, a special use permit to allow the child care facility known as Itsy Bitsy Learning Center at 1880 Prater Way. Chair Carey, you had asked at Tuesday's study session what the allowed capacity was for that child care center, the existing one. It's currently licensed by Washoe County Human Services Agency, the Children's Services Division, for up to 99 children based on the square footage of the existing site. The previous CUP did not impose any restrictions on the number of children, and the Sparks Municipal Code does not add any additional restrictions. They are licensed up to children up to age 18, but attendees are primarily between the ages of 0 and 5, and a few that are school-aged.
Thank you.
Current location is operating at full capacity with 99 children and has a wait list of over 50 children. The applicant's intent is to provide space for up to 25 infants. Use of the existing building as a single-family residence. Let me switch back here. Is a non-conforming use and a substandard structure. The MUD-MR district development standards call for a minimum of 24 dwelling units per acre because of the adjacency to the Prater Way, which is the bus rapid transit route. Conversion of this property to a commercial use then brings it into conformance, so it's no longer a non-conforming site or structure. The proposed location does meet the required parking of 1 space per 350 square feet of floor area for a childcare facility. The existing building's approximately 1,097 square feet, and 4 parking spaces are required. As reflected on the site, 4 spaces are provided, including 1 ADA parking space, which meets Sparks Municipal Code requirements. The existing location, which is to the south, has 16 spaces, and based on the square footage is only required to have 14. So there's actually 2 extra spaces beyond what's required by code when you look at them combined. Vehicle trip generation calculations estimate that there's 90 average daily trips, but only 15 a.m. and 15 p.m. peak hour trips. And according to our transportation manager, this is well below the threshold of 80 peak hour trips, so a parking analysis is not required or a traffic study is not required. And landscaping the code only requires for landscaping 15% of the site as a commercial use be landscaped. And once they've made their improvements, they'll be 49%, so well ahead of, beyond of what's required. They are not proposing a playground because this portion of the business is going to be for infant use. So there won't be play equipment and so forth, but there will be new chain link fencing around and, of course, maintenance of the landscaping. Sparks Municipal Code does require that sidewalks, curbs, and gutters be compliant with city standards when permits are issued for any site improvements or developments. So condition number 3 does provide for the improvement of the existing sidewalks, which are in very poor condition and crumbling. And the ADA ramp requires that truncated domes to bring it into compliance will be provided. And the existing driveway apron will be repaired as well as they create their parking area on the east side of the location. And staff has not received any public comment on this one. Staff does believe that the Planning Commission can make the findings for this. And finding C1, this is MUD-MR, the mixed-use district, mixed residential. Child care facility is allowed use and subject to the approval of CUP and is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Approval of the CUP would add a child care option for families with infants. And the proposed use is a non-residential land use in a mixed-use area, supporting goals MG1 by supporting economic vitality in a non-residential land base, and MG2 by fostering diversity in the land base. Finding C2. The application as submitted in condition is compatible with the existing or permitted uses of adjacent properties, and the surrounding area is primarily comprised of single-family and multifamily uses as well as some commercial uses. Let me go back to the vicinity map. So to the north, you see that up there, single-family uses. To the south are commercial. This is Deer Park to the right. There's a wonderful diversity in this neighborhood that this child care center will be providing the service for. So the proposed child care center for finding C3 will utilize an existing structure on a previously developed site and is not expected to unreasonably impair natural resources. For finding C4, the primary concern that city staff identified as potential impact regarding the site is the availability and condition of pedestrian and related facilities. As previously stated, condition 3 addresses these issues and does require the applicant to comply with the City of Sparks engineering standards. Staff received, I already said that, sorry. Finding C5, public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on April 18th. Notices were mailed to 54 property owners. And staff believes that, our staff's recommending approval for this. Ends my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Danny. Is there anyone from the Itsy Bitsy Learning Center that would like to speak on this item? Come on up, please. Thank you. We just ask that you state your name and address for the record and provide any comments you'd like to.
Good evening, I'm Belinda Martinez. I'm the director of Itsy Bitsy. I just here for questions. I've been open Itsy Bitsy for about 5 years already. I've been doing this for 25 years or more. There's calls every day, like at least 10 to 15 calls per day for childcare. Like I said, my capacity is 299, and with full capacity, I have a long waiting list. Social services went and measured the new building, and for like a courtesy, and they say it's for 25 kids. They already give me some, advice of how to put changing tables and use all the space for the kids. The main thing is the sidewalks. The rest of the stuff is gonna be kind of easy to do. It's just the sidewalks. I think that's the main thing.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Is there any questions for the applicant?
I have
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Just in thinking about when my kids were in daycare and school and the parking situation with 99 children, how many employees do you have and where do they park?
I have 20 employees right now, or 21 maybe. On the, let's see, I don't know. There's the side of the 19th Street that's mainly with the parents pick up and drop off. There's never more than 3 cars at a time. I mean, there's different times when they pick up. My employees park on the street sometimes, and then on the other side of the, by the apartments. On that side. Yeah, by the apartments. That's where they park. I have a lot of parents also that live around the area. They walk, they take their kids to Kate Smith. So it's a lot of walking. We also pick up kids from Kate Smith, so we walk through the school. We have families that live on the apartments by Sullivan, the apartments next to us. So not everyone is car, and it hasn't been a big problem, like parking and all that. So my teachers, a lot of them, they have their moms, and they bring their kids to the school, so they also can have their kids at the daycare, and they have a car, so the husband drop them off and pick them up. So it's not been a big problem with the parking so far.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Mr. Reed, any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
This is a public hearing item. This time I will open up the public hearing for PCN 19-0011. Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to provide a public comment on the proposed conditional use permit at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on this item. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. there any additional questions for staff or comments? Commissioner Vanderwell?
I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no questions.
I had one. Let's hold off on that, if you wouldn't mind, Commissioner Vanderwell. Question for staff. I did a little looking into did a little additional research after the study session. That's what I meant to say. And I was curious about the conditions of approval for the existing facility to the south. There seemed to have been an issue with, at that point, with the existing outdoor play area that was within the city's right-of-way, and they were supposed to get an easement or a right-of-way from the city. I was just wondering if all of the conditions of approval for the existing facility have been satisfied, and if that issue has been taken care of.
I would give as evidence for that the fact that the City of Sparks Services Department issued the special use permit certificate, which isn't done until all of the conditions are met.
Okay, thank you for that, Danny. Armando, is there anything okay, sorry, that works for me. Thank you. Commissioner Vanderwell.
I move to approve the conditional use permit CU 19-0006 associated with PCN 19-0011, adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 3 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwell, a second by Commissioner Reed. Is there any discussion or questions on the motion? Okay, hearing none. It's time I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the proposed motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Turn it back over to Danny for another child care.
Yes. Danny Ray, planner for the record. Here to present PCN 19-0012. This is to allow establishment of a child care facility in an existing commercial building on a site 0.55 acres in size located at 840 I Street. It's between Audie Boulevard to the north, I Street to the south, and Pyramid Way to the east. It's outlined here in cyan. The surrounding area is comprised of a mix of uses, including single and multifamily housing, commercial uses, and a church. Locations well-positioned to provide childcare services to the local community. The site's developed with one multi-tenant commercial building. It is about 7,400 square feet in size. It currently contains a mix of other uses, including a paramedical service, orthodontist office, dental offices, and a dental laboratory. The proposed childcare facility would occupy approximately 900 square feet in the northern part of the building. The lease space is outlined right here with a X through it. So the applicant's proposing establishment of the child care facility for a maximum of 10 children. This 10-child maximum has been imposed by Washoe County Human Services Agency Children's Services Division based on the square footage of the proposed facility. So unless at some point in the future the applicant wishes to expand that space, they'll be limited to 10 children at the site. There's a total of 22 parking spaces available, and based on the current and proposed tenants, it requires a total of 16 spaces for the combined uses, which leaves an excess of 4. The applicant's lease reserves 3 parking spaces for the proposed childcare facility, which is ADA accessible. These spaces are located here in front to provide a safe path of travel for drop-off and pickup of the kids. Should any employees need parking, they would be located over here on this site. There are parking spaces over there as well, but they could park just about anywhere because of the excess spaces available. The Transportation Manager reviewed the application and estimated, based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers data, that this use would generate 67 average daily trips with a 12 peak hour trips. Again, this level of trip generation is well below the threshold of 80 that would require any sort of traffic study or analysis. The playground for this proposed facility is to be located on this outdoor grassy area at the rear of the building, adjacent to the neighboring parking lot. Staff contacted the caseworker at Children's Services to express concern about safety. There's just an existing chain link fence there. And with this area, which is 9 feet by 40 feet, staff wanted to have bollards placed here and had the full support of the caseworker, who also was concerned about that area, just hadn't spoken to staff at that point. So we asked the applicant to inquire with the adjacent property owner in placing those bollards there, because the chain link fence is on the applicant's property. So the bollards would have to be placed on the adjacent property owner's property. That property owner declined. So the next best solution was to place the bollards within the yard area, and then on the west side of the bollards, place a 6-foot wood fence, so that the bollards are actually going to be sandwiched in between the chain link fence at intervals that are equal to the parking spaces to prevent any accident at that point. And that is provided for in condition number 4. Staff has received 2 public comments, one of them in support of this business. The other was silent on that, but both of them expressed concern about traffic. In particular, the right here, this is I Street, and it's really the only entrance to this area. And it's difficult to navigate. You cannot make a left turn onto Pyramid Highway from here. The center island is a double yellow striped island, and then right turns you can make. But to come here from this direction, from the north, you could turn in. But if you're coming from this direction, I think people tend to get in that island as they shouldn't and turn left into here. It's not an easy access. So both the comments express concern that of accidents and that there would be children involved. That's all we have. I did speak to the transportation manager, and NDOT is who regulates Pyramid Highway, and there are no plans at this time to address this issue. That was a question that Chair Carey had asked in the study session. So, findings. Finding C1, land use designation for the site, mixed use district, mixed residential. It is an allowed use, subject to approval of a CUP, and therefore it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Approval of the CUP would add an urgently needed childcare option for this area, as identified by Washoe County's Children's Services. The proposed use is non-residential land use in a mixed-use area, supporting goals MG1 by supporting economic vitality in a non-residential land base, and MG2 by fostering diversity in the land base. Finding C2, the application as submitted in condition is compatible with the existing or permitted uses of adjacent properties. Down to the south are multifamily, and beyond that are single family. There's commercial businesses here, a church located over there, and more commercial over at this location out to the east. Finding C3, proposed child care facility will utilize an existing structure on a previously developed site and is not expected to unreasonably impair natural resources. And finding C4, the proposed conditions of approval are intended to address these following issues. A safe path of travel must be provided from the parking lot, specifically the designated drop-off and pickup parking spaces in this use to the tenant space. That's condition number 3. Safety barrier of concrete and steel bollards is required between the childcare facilities playground and the adjacent parking lot. That's condition number 4. Finding C5, public notice was provided in the Reno Gazette Journal on April 18th. Notices were mailed to 54 property owners within 500 feet. And staff believes the Planning Commission can make the findings in support of approval of the CUP. Staff is recommending approval. And this ends my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Danny. Is the applicant's representative here? Come on up if you'd like to provide some comments. Just state your name and address for the record. And
Hi, my name's Aubrey Lindsay, address 5000 Amy Road, Reno, Nevada.
thank you, Aubrey. Were there any questions for the applicant from the commission? Oh, Commissioner Blako, go ahead.
I'm having a hard time visualizing where this grassy area, where the playground is going.
It is right behind the building. So when you walk into the building, there's a hallway that goes to my daycare.
Okay.
You go down the hallway and there's a back door
Yes.
that opens up into this long grass area that's in the back with a fence.
It's not on this picture, correct?
And you can almost see it. Okay.
So here's the lease space and here's the
Okay.
The landlord told me I could use the whole back of the area, but social services told me I only needed that much space for 10 kids for the building.
Okay, so it's the square footage of the playground that's required?
Yes,
And with the bollards and the 2 fences, I guess, does that come in onto the playground side or out into the
not
parking
as much.
lot side?
When we first looked at it, it looked like it would. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the bollards with the posts. So there's gonna be a hole for a post and then a hole for a bollard, and a hole for a post and a hole for a bollard. So
Okay.
that way the fence is still equal to the same size as what social services gave me. And the bollards still have space, so it doesn't take up as much room for the play area for the kids.
Okay, and the picture up here on the screen, that's an accurate representation of the playground, of where the
Yes.
playground will be located? Okay,
That was my architect who drew all this up.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Blako. Commissioner Peterson.
I'd like, if I may, follow up on that a little bit. As I get the dimensions, your ballards are only 3 feet high, is that not right?
Yes,
And then the back is only 9 feet depth.
yes,
That's not much of a play area. How long is that strip?
40.
40 feet?
Mhm.
Are you going to fence off the ends so that?
Yes,
the kid-
of course.
Thank you.
And we fenced them off in the way that, because there's windows to the businesses next to us in the back. So we fence it off so it's not next to, their windows aren't in the fence. So the kids have privacy and they also have privacy. So they don't have access to our children. Because their safety is most important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing item. At this time, I will open up the public hearing for PCN 19-0012. Is there any members of the public who'd like to provide a public comment regarding this proposed conditional use permit? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on this item. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. Are there any additional questions for staff? Commissioner Reed,
I'm prepared to make a motion if we're ready.
please do.
I move to approve the conditional use permit, CU dash. Right one.
1912.
Okay, that's it. Conditional use permit CU 19-0007 associated with PCN 19-00112, adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 4 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
Thank you,
I'd
Commissioner
second it.
Reed. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Commissioner Peterson. Are there any questions or comments regarding the motion? I had a couple before the vote. I wanted to commend staff for coming up with the solution of the parking bollards. I think I went by there and I saw that fence is kind of, it looks like it's been ran into a couple times. I don't know if that was just some guy that forgot it was Valentine's Day and was trying to run into Sparks Florist, but I think the bollards will do a good job of protecting the play area. I did want to kind of make a comment regarding the land uses in this area. There's a lot of office uses in this area, which I think is appropriate and a really good land use, and I think will help advance what we kind of want to do long-term in terms of mixed use development. I do have some concerns with allowing childcare within office areas, but I think given the size of this use and obviously the huge need that we've seen in this item and the item before in terms of the community needing this service, I will be supporting the motion. I do concur with staff's recommendation. Thank you. Are there any other comments on this before the vote? Okay. Oh,
I
Commissioner.
have one comment. I think it might be wise to at least maybe kind of put a no left turn sign headed on to Pyramid Way from I Street. I know that there's the double yellow there, and but just realistically, I feel like people are gonna break that rule. It might help enforcing the law if there is somebody that breaks it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up. Oh, sorry, Armando.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. We will take that as a suggestion to be discussed with our engineering staff and take it from there. But I wouldn't, I'm assuming you're not asking that to be.
No,
Okay.
no, I just feel that it would be a wise addition to that and would help reduce any kind of traffic accidents at that intersection.
Great. Are there any other comments before we vote? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Danny. We'll see you next time there's a childcare conditional use permit. Thank you, Aubrey. Have a good night.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to do an introduction or not.
I stole your thunder last time, yeah.
Yeah.
Best for last.
Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. Before you today is a request to amend the Stonebrook Final Design Standards and Regulation to modify the multifamily, commercial, and business park development standards. This property is outlined in cyan. It's a kind of a horseshoe-shaped property. Here's Pyramid Highway, and it would be kind of the southeast corner of La Posada. It is 610 acres total. On January 14th, 2019, the City Council did approve an amendment to this handbook, which was essentially rearranging the land uses or reallocating the acreages for the land uses. You may remember when that was reviewed. This amendment is for the final approval development standards regulation. The proposed amendments include update of the access and circulation map along with street cross sections. And it's an amendment to the multifamily or MDR residential development standards. There's an amendment to the general commercial development standards, amendment to the business park development standards, and then some administrative changes throughout the document. The proposed amendments are to change the development standards for the multifamily, commercial, and business park. The proposed amendments are to update the development standards and to allow for a large commercial uses along with townhomes. When reviewing a modification to an approved final plan, there are 10 findings that the Planning Commission and City Council must make, and staff believes that these findings can be made. I will summarize the findings right now. Finding A is consistency with the comp plan. The amendment supports goals MG1 and MG2 and also policy MG1 because it provides non-residential land uses with a diverse mix of land uses. There are 3 types of housing residential land uses within Stonebrook, which supports goal H2 and policy H2. Stonebrook has been in the impact fee service area number 1 since 2006, and as development occurs, impact fees will have to be paid, which will go towards the sanitary sewer, storm drain improvements, the 6th fire station, and also regional trails, which supports policy CF1. Finding B is the consistency with the surrounding land uses. Stonebrook, as I pointed out, is located on the southeast corner of La Posada and Pyramid Way, which is a commercial node here to the northwest, essentially. There are existing planned developments to the south and east of this development, and proposed amendments only change the development standards and should not affect the land uses within Stonebrook nor the surrounding land uses. Finding C is fiscally positive to the city. A fiscal impact analysis was not required with this amendment because the proposed amendments are only altering development standards and not patterns of land use. The fiscal impact analysis submitted with the 2018 comprehensive plan amendment projected a positive fiscal impact. Finding D, which is further the mutual interests of the residents and owners of the planned development. Within Stonebrook, there are no residents residing or businesses in operation right now. There are single-family homes under construction. You can see the lots over here on the eastern portion of the property, but actually none of these homes are occupied at this time. These amendments are intended to facilitate development within Stonebrook in a manner consistent with the original intent of the plan. Finding E is will not impair the reasonable reliance of the residents and owners. As stated in finding D, there are currently no residents or businesses in Stonebrook, so the amendments will not impair any residents or owners' reliance on the provisions of the handbook. Finding F will not result in changes adversely affecting the public interest. The proposed changes are intended to facilitate development of multifamily, commercial, and business park uses, mostly located on the western portion, which would be this side of the property here. Stonebrook will and have had limited impact on the property within the surrounding area. Therefore, staff believes public interest will not be adversely affected. Finding G, consistent with the efficient development and preservation of the planned development. The proposed amendments do not change the type of land uses within the handbook, nor does it change the permitted densities, nor increase the maximum number of residential units that were approved in the handbook. The intended amendments are to facilitate development of multifamily, commercial, and business park land uses while preserving the character of the approved planned development. Finding H does not adversely affect the enjoyment of the abutting land uses. Stonebrook single family remains mostly on the eastern portion, as I showed you over here, while the multifamily residential, commercial, commercial and business park will remain along Pyramid Highway. Mostly in this area, there'll be some single family down in here. There are no changes to the land use pattern or also the street pattern. The proposed changes to the street cross sections were an update to bring the street cross sections consistent with what's actually being developed, and also moving the sidewalk. The applicant wanted to move the sidewalk away from the back curb, which was in the handbook was showing it to be back a curb, and so we agreed with that change. Finding I does not solely grant private benefit upon any person. These amendments allow townhomes and also large commercial uses. The future residents will benefit from the large variety of housing types and commercial uses, and thus will not confer, these amendments will not confer any private benefit to any one person. The last finding, which is public notice, finding J, notices were mailed to property owners within 750 feet, including the owners within the planned development, for a total of 547 notices. The public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on April 18th, 2019. To date, staff has received 1 email and 2 phone calls. Once I talked with the applicant, being the citizens that called or contacted me and explained to them, they had no other issues or concerns. That does conclude my presentations. Available for questions.
Thank you, Karen. Is the applicant's representative here? Would you like to talk, Mr. Durling?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, representing the applicant. I don't have prepared remarks. We are here to answer any questions. This is largely a cleanup and clarification effort for a few items. And like I said, we're in agreement with staff's recommendation. Appreciate their hard work on this and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for the applicant? Andy, I had one. I was looking through the application, and I think it was mentioned in the staff report too, that some of the design changes are for the commercial, are to address current trends and what's going on with commercial real estate. I was kind of curious if you could elaborate on that a little bit more. We're looking at smaller buildings now with.
No,
kinda
it's
how
actually the
going?
opposite of that. So when Stonebrook was originally approved and these design standards were crafted, it's back in the early 2000s, and this was contemplated to have more smaller cottagey type uses in the commercial area. It really didn't address anything like a larger retail, say a grocery store, for example. And so as we got into looking at final design for some of those potential uses, it was very clear that there was a need to update some of those standards to make it more relevant to some of those larger retail type establishments.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, this is a public hearing item. At this time, I will open up the public hearing on PCN 19-0013. Are there any members of the public who'd like to provide a comment on this item? Come on up, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm Johanna Cobb. I live at 90 Hercules Drive, which is in the county. So I back right up to La Posada.
Okay.
So it's hard, we get little teeny drawings that kind of tell us what they're doing right now. But and I tried to look online in your computer to see if there's anything to tell us what kind of commercial, how much of a more impact traffic is going to have on La Posada, because that's the only way, those of us on the south side of Sky Ranch can get in and out. Traffic is an issue on La Posada. People go 55 miles an hour from Omni to Rockwell. And I know that currently the only access is on La Posada and Omni. And when you add more commercial on Pyramid, how are they going to get into it, because you have Dolores, I think, is probably the closest thing. So those are just kind of my concern. And if someone can give me maybe more diagrams or I can find out where I can get the plans, I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
There are 2 people living out there in Stonebrook right now.
Interesting. Thank you for the comment. Maybe what I'll suggest is maybe the applicant's representative could get with you after the meeting and, help show you where the information that you're looking for. We appreciate it. Is there any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We'll bring this back to the. Oh, okay. Dale, we need you to have you fill out a public comment card. We'll have our staff bring one over to you. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll bring this back to the commission. Are there any questions for staff or comments on this item? Okay.
I'm prepared to make a motion if we're ready.
Go ahead, Commissioner Reed. Thank you.
I move to forward to City Council a recommendation of approval of the request to amend the Stonebrook Design Standards and Regulations, PCN 19-0013, based on findings A through J and the facts supporting those findings as set forth in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Reed and a second by, I think that was Commissioner Vanderwell. Is there any comments or just discussion on the proposed motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Karen. Okay, we'll move on to our last public hearing item on tonight's agenda, and that's CA 219, and this is a code change for temporary RV sales. Jonathan, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, Jonathan Cummins, planner. Late last year and earlier this year, the mayor received comments from stakeholders in the RV show industry addressing concerns that our temporary use permit process restricted their business to 72 hours at a time, after which they would have to wait 96 hours to restart the business. As you can imagine, that's not conducive to the operation of an RV show. So in March of this year, council directed staff to initiate a zoning code amendment in order to permit temporary RV sales that would exceed 72 hours. Proposed changes would be in addition to the temporary uses list of categories in section 20.03.040 of the zoning code. The language of the proposed amendment to the code will read as follows. Section 20.03.040, temporary uses. Temporary vehicle show. This subsection applies to any event for the sale or display of vehicles, including but not limited to recreational vehicles, that is located on private property and not permitted for a vehicle sales use. 2, a temporary use permit, an active City of Sparks business license, and compliance with all requirements of the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles are required. 3, a temporary vehicle show is allowed only in tourist commercial and industrial zoning districts, or where tourist commercial uses are allowed by a final approved plan for a planned development. 4, a temporary use permit may be issued for up to 14 calendar days, including setup and takedown of the event, or as permitted by DMV, whichever limitation is more restrictive. The operator will be limited to the number of events permitted annually by the DMV. 5, there will be at least 14 calendar days between temporary vehicle shows at the event site. 6, hours of operation shall be limited to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday. 7, the entirety of the temporary vehicle show space will be on a paved surface to the approval of the administrator. 8, signage will comply with the City of Sparks sign code, and no signage shall employ beacons, spotlights, strobe lights, or exposed bulbs. 9, portable or temporary lighting of the site is prohibited. 10, the site shall be kept clear of soil, debris, and litter during and after the event. 11, all equipment associated with the event, as well as any additional litter or debris, will be removed from the site prior to the expiration of the temporary use permit. 12, trash receptacles will be provided on the site for the entirety of the event and removed prior to the expiration of the temporary use permit. 13, operator will provide portable restroom facilities on the site for the duration of the event and remove them from the site prior to the expiration of the temporary use permit. 14, the event shall not obstruct any pedestrian walkway or interfere with vehicle circulation or parking required for adjacent uses. 15, parking for event customers will be provided on site, providing 1 parking space per 3,000 square feet of event space. The parking area will be located within 100 feet of the event space. 16, the applicant will provide a detailed cumulative parking analysis for the site of the event to include impacts on parking availability for surrounding uses to the approval of the administrator. 17, the operation shall not create conditions that are detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. 18, washing or repair of vehicles on site of the temporary vehicle show is prohibited. 19, amplified sound is prohibited. And 20, test driving of vehicles will take place off-site only. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council, and I'll be glad to take your questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Were there any technical questions on the code amendment from the commission before I open up the public hearing? Okay, there are none. Well, at this point, this is a public hearing item. I will open up the public hearing for CA 219. Is there any of our 2 audience members who wish to provide a public comment at this time? Or anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing item and we'll bring this back to the commission for additional
Chair.
questions. Commissioner Vanderwell.
I'm prepared to make a motion if everybody's ready.
Let me hold off on that. I did have one question, Jonathan. Actually, I don't. I'm sorry. Commissioner Vanderwell, or Commissioner Blanco, sorry.
I have a question just about the duration. Is there, I'm just not really clear on why they would set it at 3 days initially and then changing it to 2 weeks. I feel like it's a pretty big jump going from 3 days to 2 weeks. And I just was wondering if there's any information as to why, I'm sorry, 72 hours. I was wondering if there was any information as to why it was set at 72 hours initially.
The 72-hour restriction applies to the variety of categories that are listed under temporary uses in the zoning code.
Okay.
So initially, your concern is what brought us here today, that 72-hour period doesn't really allow an RV show or a vehicle sales show to take place. In doing our research and having conversations with people from the industry, we determined that it's a pretty standard practice to allow for about a 10-day show, which would be 2 consecutive weekends with setup and takedown time. So staff did our due diligence, and we had several conversations and determined that a 2-week period should allow someone in the RV show or vehicle sales show business to operate the entire show in that period of time.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
Sure.
Any other questions from the commission? I believe Commissioner Vanderwell had a motion.
I move to forward to the City Council a recommendation of approval of the ordinance associated with CA-2-19, amending Section 20.03.040 of the Sparks Municipal Code to allow and establish regulations for temporary vehicle shows located on private property.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderwell. We have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwell, a second by Commissioner Peterson. Is there any comments or discussion or questions on the proposed motion? Before the vote, I had a couple of comments I wanted to make for the record. I appreciate the City Council for taking a look at this item and sending it back down to the commission for discussion. I think there have been several RV shows over the years in the city that have exceeded that 72-hour, and I'm glad the industry was able to come together, work with our staff, and come up with a good code amendment that will help mitigate the impacts that some of these projects have had and better, I think, align our code with the DMV and state law requirements. And I concur with staff's recommendation that the code change will help promote goal CC1 and goal EV5 of our comprehensive plan. I will be supporting the motion. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on this item? Okay. We've heard the proposed motion to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jonathan. Nice job on this. Okay, that brings us to our general business portion of the agenda. That is item number 12, and that's a selection of a commissioner to serve on regional planning to fill a 3-year term from July of this year. Does the commission have any discussion on this one or
Commissioner Carey?
any nominations? Commissioner Vanderwell.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Peterson for another term on Turkey Meadows Regional Planning.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vanderwell. We have a motion to appoint or reappoint Commissioner Peterson. Is there a second on the motion? We have a second by Commissioner Reed. Any comments or it's your last chance, Commissioner Peterson. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of reappointing Commissioner Peterson and supporting the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Can I vote for myself?
Of course you can.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Commissioner Peterson. Good luck on regional planning. Okay, the next item is item 13. That's public comment. This is our final public comment period. Is there anyone who would wish to make a general public comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period and we'll bring this back to the commission for item number 14, and that's comments from the commission. Commissioner Peterson, did you have a comment?
I'd like to thank you all for letting me back on. I enjoy that very much. Thank you.
We appreciate your service on there.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Are there any other comments from the commission? No. I had one. I would like to see if maybe staff, if we could explore the option of having the Planning Commission go on a bus tour of the city this summer. One of the things we did when I was on Parks and Rec is we did an annual tour to check out city parks and kind of get in the field and see what's going on. I think summer would be a good time to do that because there's a lot of construction activity. And as this commission knows, there's a lot of issues going on, a lot of development going on. I think it would be good if we could all get together and see these things in the field. I think it would help us get a perspective of what's going on and how our comprehensive plan is doing. And so I think there's probably some open meeting law stuff, but I would think, if we're not going to have a second meeting in June or July, I would like to explore the possibility of the commission going on a bus tour
Would you
together.
bring your brownies again?
I certainly would. I will commit to that on record,
I'll
Commissioner
vote for
Peterson.
that.
So just to comment on that, perhaps we could talk about that at our next study session, but I'd appreciate staff looking into that and the commission's willingness to look at that. Are there any other comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 15. That's adjournment. I'll call this meeting adjourned at 7:11 PM. Thank you very much, everyone.